Hey, hi, hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess, and look! We're in a different location today because these shelves are presentable. Isn't that wild? I know. I'm really disappointed in myself with painting these shelves this beautiful color and like never letting y'all see them because they were in disarray, but you know, that's what mental illness does to you. You can't always do those things. But anyway, they're here, so they are the background for today's video and more videos to come. But I am here with an April wrap up. So you're not waiting until June to get this April wrap up like I just gave you the March wrap up of the last day of April, but whatever. So I have some of the books here and any others obviously I'll put up on the screen, but I'm gonna go through what I read, and I read some really good stuff. The only thing I will say, these were in a vlog. It's a very long vlog, but this will come out after the vlog. So I will give brief reviews of these, but if you want more in-depth or as I'm reading them, I would go read my vlog. I'm gonna start with one I recently finished. I think it was the last thing I read in April, and it's called Behind the Scenes by Christina C. Jones. I ended up giving this a 3.5, rounding up to a 4. And of course, this is an adult contemporary romance, a black love romance. And for the most part, I really enjoyed this. There was something towards the end, which I've noticed is a trend in Christina C. Jones books. Not all of them, but a lot of them that I don't love. And if you want to know, spoiler alert, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, accidental pregnancy. So if you want to know, that's what, I'm just, because they're not even dating officially. Like, this is like not a good time for them. It's just, why is abortion ever an option? Anyway, back to non-spoilers. So this one takes place in Vegas. The main character's Logan. She is the daughter of prominent lawyers, so she got money, but she has like bucked family tradition and she doesn't want to be a lawyer anymore, so she's kind of like stepping out on her own to work for herself as kind of like an executive assistant kind of thing. And then Pierre his parents were in Hollywood, and so he's kind of had a past of, you know, partying and doing some things, and then kind of dipped off the scene. And now he's coming back in to try his hand at writing a TV show. Obviously, he has the pressure of being the son of these Hollywood elite, or like, you know, well-known Hollywood actor and actress. And it's like, is this a Nepo baby thing, or does this person actually have talent? Anywho, they meet. It's kind of crazy. They're meet cute, if you want to call it cute. And then they later find out that they are going to be working together because she has been hired basically as his executive assistant for his TV show. And so he's very like, I don't need help. I'm doing my thing. And of course she's like, I know my worth and I'm good at this, and obviously proves that. And I liked their banter together. I loved both of them. Like, you know, they're both rich people and so they both had their things, but I liked her journey of going out on her own and dealing with the repercussions from her parents, since they were like, you're supposed to be an attorney. And then his journey of fighting against the perception of being this Nepo baby, also his past coming back to haunt him, and also the glimpses we got to see of the show, because he's still kind of actively writing it as we're in the book, and so we would get to see or get little excerpts from the script, and then they are like filming the show. And so his younger sister is in the book as well, and she's a hoot. And so I just really enjoyed all of it all together. It's not like they were my all-time favorite couple, but I had a good time and I felt chemistry between them. I just did not like that at the end. I will say, even though this wasn't super long, I think this was around 350 pages, I did feel like in the middle it was kind of like, okay, now we're just kind of doing back and forth because some other guy comes in the picture for her, and then some girl comes in the picture for him, and it's kind of these little petty things back and forth, and I was like, all right, let's get through it. But overall, I still really enjoyed it. So if you go and listen to what the spoiler is and that doesn't bother you, then this is gonna be a great time. Okay, I also listened to The Age of Magical Overthinking, Notes on Modern Irrationality by Amanda Montell. I I am so glad that I did not buy this, because when Target was having their like buy two get one free, I think, sale going on, I was tempted because there were 2 other books that I had that I was gonna get, and then I ended up getting them from Barnes & Noble. But the cover just really, I thought it was really fun. And I was like, I want it. And I'm glad I waited for my library hold, because this was so disappointing. Now, this is the author of Cultish, which I know a lot of people loved. I did not. I didn't hate it, but I was underwhelmed. I want to say this carefully, because I only have a bachelor's degree. I'm not doing anything with it. So this is not to like be elitist or look down. But Amanda Montell just has her bachelor's in linguistics. But Cultish was very much marketed as like a linguist looks at language that cults use. And while there is some of that in that book, it doesn't go into depth in what I wanted from a book written by a linguist about a topic. I thought it was very surface level, and so it's a very easy to read entry level nonfiction book, but it didn't give me the depth that I wanted. And so why did I read this one? I don't know. The title and the premise sounded really promising. So the Age of Magical Overthinking. Notes on Modern Irrationality. So it's written as, the blurb is, utilizing the linguistic insights of her witty and brilliant first book, Wordslit, and the sociological explorations of her breakout hit, Cultish, Amanda Montell now turns her erudite eye to the inner workings of the human mind and its biases in her most personal and electrifying work yet. So there's the problem right there, personal. This almost felt part memoir-y, and if it was marketed like that, granted, it did say personal right there, but it does not say memoir, I definitely would not have read it, because no offense, she is not somebody that I need a memoir of. We already got enough of her about, some of her life in Cultish from her experience with a parent in a cult. I need to be interested in the person to want to read their memoir. Do you know what I'm saying? So in this, this says magical thinking can be broadly defined as the belief that one's internal thoughts can affect unrelated events in the external. Think of the conviction that one can manifest their way out of poverty, stave off cancer with positive vibes, thwart the apocalypse by learning to can their own peaches, or transform an unhealthy relationship to a glorious one with loyalty alone. In all its forms, magical thinking works in service of restoring agency amid chaos. But in the age of magical overthinking, Montell argues that in modern information age, our brain's coping mechanisms have been overloaded and our irrationality turned up to an 11. Which, as a person who is very much on the interwebs, heavily online, I thought this would be interesting. And I'm still trying to find exactly what I want to say. I don't know if I'll have enough to make a separate video, but I feel like who Amanda Montell thinks she is and who she is are 2 very different people, which could be true for most of us, but she is giving me, she thinks of herself more intellectual and more of an educator than she actually is, and she just is really using buzzwords, popular words, very common sociological ideas or definitions put together, and like, I know things. I don't watch her podcast because again, Jessica, why did you read this? Listen to me, okay? I don't know why I listened to this book, but I did. I'm glad I didn't spend any money. But the topic, I was like, as another person who's very much online, maybe this could be interesting. And it was not. It felt very self-insert. Let me talk about myself often instead of the general we, the collective we. It was more about me. This is what happened when I was dating this dude. This is what happened when I blah, blah, blah. And ooh, I had to eat, pray, love my way through. Girl, shut up. That is not what I'm here to read about. It's not relatable either. I can't put my finger on it, but she irks me. And I don't know what it is, but I'm usually right. It may take years to come out, but I'm usually right. But anyway, it just gives, I don't know what I'm talking about, but somehow I can word vomit and jazz that up with some glitter and some fun words, and I'm relatable and make it, and people buy it. Because people obviously enjoy her podcast, and I didn't read Wordslut, and then obviously people loved Cultish, but like this book is not good. It's not well researched. It's not really focusing on the thesis of talking about people, like the overthinking from being so chronically online. It does touch on that, but it's not giving us let's back up. Here's what I wanted. This book is talking about, it's talking about our unhealthy relationships of being online, right? From various things, talking about health or the end of the world. And so this says that she argues that in a modern information age, our brain's coping mechanisms have been overloaded and our irrationality turned up to an 11. In a series of razor-sharp, deeply funny chapters, Montel delves into a cornucopia of the cognitive biases that run rampant in our brains. And here's my thing, is you're just using popular psychological terms that like we already know, and you're just applying that to the internet. Like she brought nothing new to the table. Like we know about groupthink, we know about, and maybe not everybody, maybe I'm speaking from my experience, the sunk cost fallacy, but she also doesn't expound on them that much. It's very surface level. And I feel like this, again, is what I felt about Cultish. This is very like, oh, I can't think of the magazine, but it's very just like this could be an article. This could be a blog post, not just shit on blog posts. This is not a well-researched nonfiction novel. Do you know what I'm saying? And maybe that's my bad on expecting that or wanting that, but like, when you say that you're going to argue, I expect an argument. I want your thesis, and then I want an argument, and I want proof, and I want evidence, and I want research. Not some, oh, this random survey from 17 magazine said that 1 out of every girl's, whatever. I don't think it was exactly from 17 magazine, but it was not giving me deep research. It was like, a boopity boopity boop, I'm a girly online, here's what I see, type it up, let me look up some psychological definitions, boop, bop, boop. It's giving very much girl boss, and no, I just, it's not good. It's not good. I'm gonna read from this here, right here. Like this review saying that Montel isn't very good at talking about anything outside of her own experience or area of expertise. Cultish works because Montel has an academic background in linguistics, so I could overlook the flaws of that book and still have a good time with it. And this book, it's very obvious to me that she does not have the same sort of knowledge and understanding of the psychological concepts that she's trying to discuss, because there really isn't anything here beyond what you could Google in 30 seconds. In addition to that, where I have issue with Montel's work in general is that she just seems to exist in a bubble and isn't really able to expand beyond it. It was an issue I have with Cultish, and it's an issue with the podcast as well, but that is mostly mitigated by her former co-host and guest host. However, this book doesn't have much to hide behind. I think she comes across as a bit out of touch, and I just don't think you can write a book about the cultural zeitgeist when you are only able to comment on a very narrow viewpoint. As a result, the book was kind of all over the place, shallow, and kind of boring. Yes! You don't have the range, sweetheart, and that's fine. We only can exist within our lived experiences, but that's why you have to do research. That's why you have to read other things and look at articles and studies, and you have to put that all together to support your argument. And she doesn't do that. Besides, again, brief Google, like, I've heard of this term, let me go, yes. And I'm gonna talk about that very briefly, and then I'm gonna go into a personal life experience. No, again, like this just felt like a podcast topic that you just have a kiki with a friend, a very simple, blog post or quippy article you want to write, not a nonfiction novel where you were like, I am arguing this. You didn't argue it. You didn't argue it well at all. And she is just very much in her little privileged bubble. That is not to say that she hasn't had certain hard life experiences, because she did have an abusive relationship with someone who was very hard, older than her. She was in a cult, or her father was in a cult. I forgot which one. That does not negate that she has other privileges, because those things are still very much blinders, and you can see it reflected in her work. So I do not recommend that book. I don't think you're going to get anything else from it that you can't get from online from your favorite person who talks about people who are chronically online. There's my thoughts about that. I also read James by Percival Everett. I'm very ashamed that only recently have I learned about Percival Everett and realized he had written so many books. I think he's an English professor. I can't remember where, but I bought The Trees, and then James was coming out. It was a audio copy, like an advanced audio copy through Libro FM. Thank you. So I listened to that. before I read The Trees. And it is basically the story of Huckleberry Finn, but from Jim's perspective. I've never finished Huckleberry Finn because I tried to read that years ago and was like, no thank you, Marcus Twain. No thank you. What's that his name? Mark? Whatever. Not for me. And so, but I knew enough to understand who Jim is. And so in that story, we're in, you know, the antebellum South. We're during slavery times. Jim is a slave. And Huck, befriends Jim, and they end up running away together for various reasons. But I thought it was really, like, I really liked how this was written, because you know when you read things or even you watch things and you have a character who's a slave and they talk a certain way, like, oh, sure enough, I mean, massa, I don't know, you know? But in the book, it is very much like they're speaking like that in front of white people, but then you see James, with his family and other people, and they're talking normal. They're actually very educated. They're teaching their children how to read different things. But he's also explaining, like, hold on, like, we know these things, this is how we speak, but what do we say when we're in front of those people? And just different ways they, like, break it down, like, no, if there's a fire, what do you say? Like, you don't say there's a fire, because then you're telling them something, and you can't let them know, like, that you can't give off that you're smarter than them. And so that was really, I really liked that change of reading, like, that perspective. I'm sure there were some who developed a code, if not many of them, that the way they spoke with each other was different than they spoke in front of white people. Makes sense. I will just say that obviously it's hard for me to say I enjoyed reading this book because he was still a slave, even if we saw these moments that he had, like these positive moments that he had, positive experiences that he had, because obviously he ends up being on the run, and a slave on the run, a dangerous thing. And the different trials and tribulations that he and Huck go through, the people that they meet and then have to run from, and all of the different circumstances they end up in. And I was just like stressed. I was stressed, I was worried, I was like, oh my God. I thought it had a really solid ending, and the way that James just takes ownership of himself as a person, like, I may be this black man in this time, but like, he was proud, he was strong, he was educated, he, like, I don't know how to explain it. If you've read it and you know the ending, then you know what I'm talking about, but I just can't say that I, like, loved my experience reading it, because sadness. But I have heard that he is a very satirical writer, and some people don't like that in his books. I think I rated James a 4-star, really strong 4-star. And I'm going to read The Tree since I already own that one, but he does have a lot of other books. He's written a lot, so I'm very interested to check out more of his backlist, but James is the most recent one. And I do recommend you check it out, but just be cognizant of what it is before you read it. Okay, the last one that I don't physically own here, we're already at 20 minutes, my God, is Fake It Till You Bake It. This was another black love romance. Obviously it has baking in it, which is my favorite. I love baking in a story, really, but especially in a romance. But we have, he is an NFL player. Yes, he's a professional football player who is trying to, you know, still playing, but have also other streams of income, so when he stops playing. And she is the daughter or granddaughter of the person who owns the football team that he plays for. And so she was also on a reality show, like what do you call that show? The Millionaire, The Matchmaker, The Bachelor, or whatever that show is, like The Bachelor. But she turned the guy down at the end when he asked her to marry her. And so now she's like this big disgraced person in America, and she's kind of been hiding out. Her parents have cut off her money, and so she got to get a job, and she ends up working at his bakery. And it's funny when they first meet, because she comes in before she, like, gets a job there, and is criticizing his bakery. And so that's a funny way that they start off the way they meet, and then obviously they meet again and are like, oh, you coming in talking about my bakery. And so they both help each other. It ends up being like a fake dating thing because it's good for her for the press, and then it's good for him. I don't remember why, but I know it's good for her for the press, and so you see their relationship develop. And then they weren't my favorite. Like, I wasn't super invested in them as a couple. I did feel a little chemistry between them, not a lot. I'd said like a 3.75 rounded up to a 4, but I still really enjoyed it. I of course enjoyed the baking. Like, it made me so hungry because they would talk about new cupcakes and cupcake flavors, and I was like, oh my god, I sound so hungry. But let me tell you what, the kind of the twist, I don't know if you want to call it a twist, but something that happens with the dude who was the bachelor on the show that she turned down, and like this person who's been hounding her in the media, the way that is handled is so satisfying. I was like, oh, I listened to this and I was just like, I know that's right. Like, I loved how they were quickly gathered. Ooh, it was so satisfying. So it was really cute. And he has friends who I think he also went into business with, and they were really funny. And I think that the next one is one of them getting into relationships. I really do want to read that one because he was hilarious. And so overall, this was just a really fun, cute time. And it was a pretty quick audiobook, I think. Yeah, it depends on if you're listening to it 2 times. I don't think it took that long. So another really precious, cute adult contemporary romance. Now, so the ones I physically have, well, this is a library copy, but this is Spy Family Volume 7, which has probably been my least favorite volume to date. It feels very filler because we're not really focused on our, what are these people called? The forgers. Like, we get stuff about, what's this little kid? The kid of the dad that Lloyd's supposed to be like getting close to. We get it about him, and then about his fake wife's brother. We get some about him. It was fine. It was fine, but it just wasn't focused on our main 3, and so I just didn't love it as much, so I don't have much to say about it. However, I did read 3 more volumes of Full Metal Alchemist, and I'm so mad because where did April go? I read this like at the beginning and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and finish the series, and then somehow it's May. I don't know what happened there, but anyway, I read 10, 11, and 12 of Full Metal Alchemist, and I'm just like, thank you to everyone who corrected me in my previous video that Wenry is not their cousin, because I was concerned. But this is just, look at him, look how big he is now. He's just growing up in front of my eyes, and I'm just so worried, and the things keep happening, and then he came back. I'm like, what are you doing back? And then we got the confirmation that, I'm loving this, and I don't know why I don't just keep reading that. Like, this is just like maybe an hour and a half if I sit down and read this whole thing. Why don't I just do that? Because I'm trying to read too many things at once. But I don't think I can say much about it since we're on volumes 10, 11, and 12. Just know that I was loving this and I need to continue. Again, I'm not gonna spend too much time on these because I do have a very long ass vlog, but I will just quickly go through these. So I was like, in the mood to read romance, and I originally was just looking for these 2. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should try these that I've seen because they're really popular and just make it a vlog. And so I did read them in 1 week, which I was shocked. Although I did read and finish these 3, Done and Dusted by Lila Sage, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and The Air He Breathes by Brittany Cherry. I did DNF this. Butcher in the Blackbird, or Butcher in Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. This was atrocious. I don't understand. Like, sometimes I can read a book and get it, why people like it, and be like, it's not for me. I don't get this. I don't get the popularity with this at all. I thought it wasn't written well. It doesn't make sense. I also bought this thinking that this was a fantasy romance. So these 2 are serial killers of serial killers. So they kill bad people. This is just stupid because in the real world, it's set in America. They don't live close to each other, and they don't live close to the people they're killing. So think about Dexter and how Dexter was set in Miami and he's killing people in Miami, okay? That makes more sense, okay? Here, this does not make sense. And the way it's not secret, your brothers know about it, your best friend knows about it, you talk about it on the phone, you do all these elaborate things at scenes, you're flying on a commercial airplane to these places, you're committing murders. This is so stupid. I just thought the writing was terrible. I thought that also the way, like, let's see. She's fucking hot. Definitely has a dark side. She likes to take her victims' eyeballs while they're still alive. The feds call her Orb Weaver. Her actual name is Sloane Sutherland. Keep her name out your fucking mouth, I snarl. That was on page 34, where they've met one time and it's been a year. That was another thing. There's so many time jumps because, again, they don't live by each other and they like kind of play this game where they get together once a year to see who can find this person and kill him first, which is set up by another person. I'm like, you are killing people? You don't let other people know, you idiots. This was so fucking dumb. And just like, what are you doing? She was like jogging down the stairs. I'm boobing boobily, Rowan. What does it look like? Like, I'm sure someone would be like, that's just a play on how men write women. I don't care. It was dumb. And then like, he's beating somebody to death and he's like, this is only on page 65. And he's like, I think of her face and I keep hitting even when he seizes, even when he drowns his blood, even when he dies. Like, wow, I can already kill for you. It just, I don't get it at all. I think this was horrendous. I DNF'd it about page 136 and then I kind of skimmed and saw the ending and I was like, jail time. Hated. Done and dusted. I just like this kind of vintage cover and I've been seeing this one and then there's another one that's already out, I think. And maybe there's a third one coming. But this is a small town brother's best friend romance. And this I enjoyed a lot. However, the romance was my least favorite part of the story, so I could not rate it higher than I don't even know when I rated it, 3-star. Like, I was loving this, like, small town. It's, like, in Wyoming on a ranch. She's coming home from the big city of Denver. Her best friend's there. Loved her best friend. Her brothers, even though one's super protective. And then her dad. And I just love the family aspect of it. And then the longtime family friend who she ends up falling for. And so I loved all of that. With them together, I wasn't buying it. It happened so quickly. There were some moments that I was just like, ugh, cringing from what happened or what was said. And we just hopped to love real fast. So I liked the author's writing. And again, I liked the majority of the story, but the romance. So like, that's a problem there. However, I think that her brother is one of the books. And I don't know if her best friend is. So I'd be interested to read those. I wouldn't buy them, but I would be interested to read those. As long as we're not spitting in people's mouths. If you watch the vlog, you know. Then I read The Air He Breathes by Brittany Cherry. Now, why did I think this was a black romance? You should not assume just because it's a black author that it's a black romance, because that's what I thought this was, and it was not. I still enjoyed it. I gave it a 4-star. It was very good. But I just did not realize what I was getting. But this is not a rom-com, okay? It does have some lighthearted moments, but these both characters have lost their spouse within the last year, and the man lost his wife and son, so it's, oh my gosh. I was like, damn, this is sad as shit. Of course, I only read some of the back saying, I was warned about Tristan Cole, stay away from him, he's cruel, he's cold, he's damaged, obviously, because he lost his wife, and so he's kind of just like moved to this town and put on this facade, growing out his beard, he's like, I'm this burly, crazy, angry man. And so people are like, girl, don't talk to him. But of course, they get to know each other and they help each other through their grief. And this one is a quicker sexual burn and a slower emotional burn, which I enjoy. Because at first they acknowledge that they're like using each other to imagine the other's, you know, now gone spouse. But here's the thing. And I don't know if y'all know this about me, but in a romance, well, there's a man who is taking care of interacting with being amazing to a child that's not his. Ah! I mean, I love it when the child is his also, but when the child is not his, I don't know, it does something else. And so she has a daughter, and so him and the daughter's relationship, loved. Her relationship with her best friend, I love that. We don't see much of his, like, him with anyone, because he's kind of cut everyone off in his life. We do get a little bit of his parents towards the end. She has kind of a rocky relationship with, not kind of, she has a rocky relationship with her mother, but I loved her having her best friend there and her daughter, and then the relationship with her daughter and him, and I mean, it did get a little Lifetime movie in the last 75 pages, I will say. I mean, it had me on the edge of my seats. I was like, oh my God, like I could not put it down. I had to finish it. It does get a little, but it's a little Lifetime movie towards the end. So again, I still really enjoyed this. A really strong 4-star. But next time I will double check when I think I'm getting Black Love. Just kidding. My favorite out of the bunch, of course, Abby Jimenez, coming 3 for 3, because all 3 of the books I've read from her are 5 stars. I'll go ahead and tell you, just for the summer. Now, she does look a little chunky, but I read it quick. Again, a man taking care of kids that ain't his own. Oh my Lord. It just does something to me. It does. This character, also when women have issues with their mothers in books, I relate hard to that. Not like I was abandoned. Like her mama just left her and then she was put in foster care. I didn't experience that, but still, I can relate to some things. And then he has to assume guardianship of his siblings, and you find out why. But she, as being abandoned by her mother, her and her best friend are travel nurses, so they don't stay anywhere longer than like 3 months. And they meet from like a Reddit, am I the asshole post? I won't explain. But she ends up coming to where he is in Minnesota for the 3 months because they both believe that they are like good luck charms for other people. So everyone that they date, it doesn't last. And then they go on to find the one. And they're like, hey, what if we date? Then that means we cancel each other out. Or like the next person we date after we break up will be the one. Obviously, that doesn't happen because they're meant for each other. Yep. Loved her best friend. I was like, that's my best friend. I'll fight for you. Yes! And I loved the way it intersected, connected, linked back to the other 2 books. The Part of Your World and then whatever the first one was called. I forgot. Because they're in the same universe, I guess. The same city. So we do get an overlap of the characters. And at first, okay, Part of Your World, Life's Too Short. But so I recognized one of the characters at first and I was like, oh, okay. But then there was a even deeper level of connection. And I was like, oh, this was amazing. So anyway, oh, I still have one more. Oh my God. But if you want more, go watch my vlog about those. Lastly, I read Do Nothing, How to Break Away from Overworking, Overdoing, and Underliving by Celeste Headley. This is a nonfiction and this was amazing. I loved this. I think I put a quote. I have many quotes. Here's my tabs if you can see. One that I put on my Goodreads was, do not let corporate values determine how you spend your days and what your priorities are. Reclaim your time and reclaim your humanity. Which came at a perfect time as I was quitting my job. But there's so much in here that I'm like, I felt like this was great at explaining how we've gotten to the place of we are just overworking ourselves, and also very interesting to see what the predictions were for us with the advancement of technology and how far away we are from that. There were some points I didn't necessarily agree with her, and I have a couple tabs in here because she does talk about the importance of like community and like sometimes the importance of talking, especially like talking on the phone and maybe working together, not working, and not everything can be done remotely. And I was like, girl, I don't know. But because like small talk is the worst, but there is just a lot in here. There's also like steps to, like, realistic steps, because obviously everyone can't just quit their job. And they still won't be realistic steps for everyone because everyone is different. But there still are, you know, steps in here of things we can do to try to have more leisure, more, you know, just time where that isn't super structured, that isn't working towards making money. Again, will not apply to everyone. But, you know, we are in a culture where it's like you start doing something and it's like, oh, well, you can make that in a side hustle. You can monetize that. And it's like, everyone doesn't want to do that. I know that we live in a world where a lot of people have to do that, but just being able to get hobbies that are time consuming and expensive, where you just spend your time doing this thing only to do the thing. It is not to produce it for someone. It's not to produce it for content. It's not to be to produce it to be sold. It's literally just to do the thing. And I was like, that's me in bookbinding, because that's a money pit. But here is some of the, one thing I want to try that she recommended was like tracking your time, like writing literally down like hour by hour, like how much time you're spending on your phone, how much time. And I'm like, girl, I don't know if I want to do that. But I think there's just a lot of good, realistic things in here. Of ways really reclaim your time. Like, obviously you can't add more time to your day, unfortunately, but like investing in leisure. So it's like this excerpt. There are two types of rest: leisure and time off, or spare time. Spare time is not true rest. Leisure, on the other hand, is separate from work. It should be unpolluted by work, meaning that you don't check your emails or work or answer work calls during this time, nor do you worry about how your activity might impact your work life. Because she does talk a lot about people who have jobs where they, you know, have to check emails or take calls or stuff off of different hours. Again, it's not going to apply to everyone because we all have different jobs, but the complete list of solutions at the end of the book that she says are increased time perception. So that was tracking what you do so you can kind of see how you're using your time. Create your ideal schedule. Stop comparing at a distance, which that's hard. Work fewer hours, schedule leisure, schedule social time, work in teams, commit small selfless acts, focus on ends, not means. And again, the work in teams part, I'm like, I need to work on that because I don't like people. But again, in an ideal world, we would work together and that would be more beneficial. But I feel like, especially in a post-2020 world, even if we're outside of 2020, I'm not convinced that we are. I find working together is just harder, because even people just in public, a lot of people don't seem to have just simple human decency or acknowledge that there are other people around them and respecting bubbles or just respecting people's space. I mean, people won't even wear a fucking mask. So I'm not saying this is perfect and every word is law and gold, but I do think it is I think it is a worthy read and something that I will consult back to as I try to be better with my time. But overall, this is what I want in a nonfiction book. It presents their thesis. Her thesis is, despite our constant search for new ways to optimize our bodies and minds for peak performance, human beings are working more instead of less, living harder, not smarter, and becoming more lonely and anxious. We strive for the absolute best in every aspect of our lives, ignoring what we do well naturally and reaching for a bar that keeps rising higher and higher. Why do we measure our time in terms of efficiency instead of meaning? Why can't we just take a break? And so again, she goes back through the history and like Industrial Revolution and how our standardized work week and 40 hours came to be, and predictions that were made that we now should be working less because technology has increased and yet we're working more. And then there also are relevant studies that show what we are more naturally inclined to do, how human beings are naturally happier in certain situations, and then she provides ways to try to achieve that. That's what I want in a nonfiction, okay? I'm not saying everything has to be perfect, every word you need to accept as law, but I want you to present your thesis and I want you to back it up with research and history and context and like this. Amazing. So anyway, woo! I read a lot in April. That plus how many fan fiction words that I read, probably a lot, because I think I did read a big chunker. So how was your month of reading? Have you read any of these that I read? And do you have anything that you are excited to get to in May, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, stay blessed, hydrated, moisturized, and sunscreen, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.